I still don't know why I agreed to that trip. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but now I have my doubts. My friends and I thought it'd be fun to rent a cabin deep in the woods. No cell service, no neighbors, just us and the clothes on our backs, a real escape from the world. The place was cheap, suspiciously cheap, but we didn't care. We were looking for an adventure, and this seemed perfect. The first night was fine, laughs around the fire, the usual. We shared stories and roasted marshmallows. But it started the second night. That's when things took a turn. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to this strange tapping noise. It was faint but persistent. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, like someone was lightly drumming their fingers on the window. It was unnerving. I brushed it off as tree branches. It seemed like the most logical explanation. But when I went to the window, there were no branches near it, just darkness, an endless void. Suddenly the tapping came back with a vengeance, louder. It was almost as if it was demanding attention. My friend Jake got annoyed and stormed outside to scare off whatever it was. He was always the brave one. He was gone for 20 minutes. We started to worry. When he finally came back, his face was pale. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He wouldn't say a word, just went straight to bed. It was unlike him. The next morning, I asked what he saw. I needed to know, desperately. He whispered one word, nothing. But his eyes told a different story, but his hands were shaking. He was clearly terrified. That night, I locked every door and window before bed. I wasn't taking any chances. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up to a loud thud. It was jarring. When I opened my eyes, the window was open. My heart raced, and there was a note on the floor. It was chilling. It said, "You locked the wrong door." My blood ran cold. We left the cabin before sunrise. We didn't look back, but sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I still hear that tapping. It haunts me. Have you ever stared at your own reflection for so long that it feels off, like something is not quite right? I used to think mirrors were harmless, just glass and silver, simple and unassuming, but I know better now. Mirrors can be deceptive. It all started when I moved, a place that seemed perfect at first. The bathroom had this massive antique mirror, a relic from another time. The landlord said it was original to the building, a piece of history. I thought it was charming. At first, it added character to the place. One night, I was brushing my teeth, staring at the mirror, when I noticed something strange, something unsettling. My reflection didn't look quite right. It felt off. I laughed it off as sleep deprivation, thinking I was just tired. But then, it got worse, much worse. A week later, I was drying my hands when I saw my reflection smile. I wasn't smiling. I stepped back, and so did it, mimicking every move I made. But when I turned to leave, it didn't. It stayed still. It just stood there, staring at me with this grin that wasn't mine, a grin that sent chills down my spine. I tried to convince myself I was hallucinating, but the next morning I found scratches on the mirror as if someone or something had been clawing at it from the inside. It was terrifying. I threw that mirror away, but sometimes when I pass by reflective surfaces, I see something out of the corner of my eye, something that isn't me. It's like a shadow that lingers. Have you ever received a phone call from someone you knew who wasn't alive anymore? It's a chilling experience that shakes you to your core. It happened a year ago. My best friend, Sarah, had tragically passed away in a car accident. The loss was unbearable. I was devastated. We used to talk every night, sharing our dreams and fears. So when my phone rang at midnight and her name popped up on the screen, my heart stopped. I answered, thinking it was some glitch or a cruel joke. But strangely, the line wasn't dead. In fact, there was this faint static, and then I heard her voice. "It's so cold here," she whispered. I couldn't speak. My mouth went dry. Then she said, "Why didn't you come with me?" Her voice was filled with sorrow. I dropped the phone, but the call didn't end. Her voice got louder, angrier, echoing in the silence of the night. "Why did you let me die?" she demanded, her voice piercing through the static. I screamed through the phone, and it shattered into pieces. But when I looked at the broken pieces, her face was reflected in every shard, staring back at me with haunting eyes. I've changed my number since then, hoping to escape the nightmare. But every year, on the anniversary of her death, I get a call. It's like a ghostly reminder. And no matter how many times I block the number, it always comes through, sending chills down my spine. It all started the week we moved in. Our humble neighbor, Mr. Green, was the sweetest old man you could ever imagine. The type to bring over mouth-watering pies, share stories about his life and of the neighborhood, and has the warmest smile that could touch and brighten up anyone's day. But late at night, the oddest sounds would come from his humble abode. Muffled thuds, the faint scream every now and then. My wife was quick to tell me to relax, that it was just an old house creaking due to age. Nothing out of the ordinary. One night our dog booked it into Mr. Green's yard, barking like she's crazy. We followed, looking for her, calling her, only to see her scratching the basement door of his. Needless to say, our eyes were wide open. The strange thing was slightly open. Why? To this day, IDK if it's a mix of curiosity or gutsiness, but I had to know what was on the other side. I went in and, well, I felt my heart stop and dropped. I pushed it open, and inside were scratched walls, looks of a futile attempt at escape, chains dangling from the ceiling, bolted to the floor. The air, the smell, that smell, my poor nostrils, truly a smell that shouldn't exist, but here we are. You can guess what happened next, but we called the police, and Mr. Green wasn't looking so green after he got arrested the next day. Turns out he had been keeping people in his basement for several decades. But, worst of all, those pies. Well, let's just say, I can never see pies the same again after this.